And I would like to introduce a gentleman who came from Los Angeles. It's Eric Gunnar Mortensen. Is it spelled correctly?
Yeah, everyone calls me Gunnar.
Okay, Gunnar. Great for having you here. Gunnar probably suffers if somebody comes with a large format camera, do you?
Well,
what is a
I'm getting
camera
used to
assistant doing besides of focusing and everything? So please tell a bit about your profession, what you do, how you came to that. It's your turn.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Gunnar. I'm a focus puller from Los Angeles. As been said, my job is to take care of all the technical things for the directors of photography like Julio, so they can focus on being creative. Sometimes I'm the bad cop with production to make sure his vision is protected, fight for the gear that we need, proper staffing, and just create a solid foundation. I take care of all the technical things, like I said. I do all the hiring and the firing for the most part, and make sure that all of the gear is properly maintained. So.
How did you come into that profession? Did you visit a film school, or did you work step by step up?
Well, I did start step by step. I started as a camera trainee on car commercials in Colorado, but I think my future was set. I was walking my dog with my mom. I was in second grade, and I was in Littleton, Colorado, and I saw a process trailer with 2 Panaflexes driving around, and they were filming ladybugs. In the middle of Colorado, you normally would never see this going on. I said, I want to be one of those people on that process trailer. It took a long time, but eventually I've been sitting on those things quite often. So thank you, Rodney Dangerfield, for my career.
So then you applied at a film production?
Now, yeah, I started working at when I was in high school. I started working at a documentary film company, and I was kind of the camera assistant and training to be a cameraman. And at the same time, I used to, in Colorado, they'd have all of these commercials come, doing mostly car commercials. As soon as it starts snowing, you get trucks drifting through the snow, right? And we still was on a lot of 435s back then, because that was the workhorse of car commercials, and commercials in general. You don't need sync sound. And, I got a call to say, hey, can you drive a truck? Sure, I could drive a truck. Never really drove a truck before, but said I could. And I drove the camera package up and met all the camera people, and I got them all coffee, and then all of a sudden I became the camera trainee. And then it was my job to take all the film and bring it back to the airport so they could fly it back to Los Angeles to get developed. And then from there, they had this little thing, a little Sony clamshell, and you used to flip it up, and then you use a mini DV, and you record out of the video tap, and every time they say roll, I have this my own little job, looked like a Walkman, and I had to record that and give it back to the agency so they could check to make sure we're getting all the good shots on car commercials. And eventually I was the loader, and then from there, second for 6 years, and then the last 10 years I've been pulling focus. No, it's not even that. It's more, 13, right?
So maybe it's a silly question because I come from post-production and not from the shoot. But, everything is moving. So if we would move the distance to this gentleman, we would see, well, it's 2.50 meters, and then we would focus on 250. But unfortunately, he stands up and we follow him. So how do you do that?
Well,
do you just guess? Do you have displays? Do you measure in between?
Well, the most important tool of a focus puller is a tape measure. And it's so easy to get caught up in the newest technology, and you have a UDM, you can have a light range, you can have all these other fun, cool stuff. But the most important thing is a tape measure. Get your marks, learn your distances. I always joke that my retirement plan after the film industry is I'm going to open a booth at the carnival and just guess how far you are from me. That's not, so. This particular tool is the most useful in your kit, because what's going to happen, you can use if you need a moment, you can pump the brakes. You tell productions, like, I need a mark, you can get it, you can take a moment to breathe and feel ready to do the shot so you don't mess it up. Also, it's a great way, especially a soft tape measure. You don't want to ever put a hard tape measure next to an actor, because you don't want to hit them in the face. They get really sensitive about that. So soft tape is great because you walk over and you get to meet all the people. I call actors my dance partners. So I'm about to start a movie with Jennifer Gardner. I've never met her before, but I'm going to go over here and be like, oh, hi Jen, I'm Gunnar. I'm your dance partner. And then breaks the ice. Instead of just standing off on the side, no one knows who you are. And the most important thing about being in the camera department, especially when you're kind of a performing crew member, there's a couple people I think the dolly grip, the camera operator, and myself. We all go, when most people sit down is when we actually shine and we have to do our job. So we're a performing crew member and we have to be in tune with all the actors. So
I was shooting like 2 years ago with an Alexa LF in India, and there was a focus puller who was probably 10, 15 years older than me. And he just had a SXU1, a single axis remote unit for the focus of the Alexa LF. And I asked him how he would know that if the girl goes through the curtain and stands next to the plant in the garden, how far away she is. He had no monitor, he had nothing. He looked at me as well. I know how far she's away. So do you look on a monitor and control yourself, or can you guess even in that moving situation?
Well, I could do it's harder on the LF and these large format stuff, but we're in a time when focus pulling is really changing. The monitor, when I started pulling focus, you would never use a monitor. And now it seems to be kind of the status quo. So you gotta be able to adapt, and you gotta be, I always tell people you need to be flexible and you need to be positive. So each shoot's a little different. I did 2 seasons of a show called Transparent. And Transparent, just like After the Wedding, I had Jay Duplass in it, and great actor, really fun. But Jill Soloway didn't want to have any of the actors have marks. We didn't want to have dollies and positions. It was all handheld, and it was kind of like avant-garde free jazz, where I had this close focus 35, and we'd go to like 12 inches away from Jeffrey Tambor, and we pull back, and we do all this stuff. And there's no way, there's no way to just get in a tape mark and just know an estimated distance. So that was a monitor show. It had to be. That was just the nature of that.
Do you have it mounted to your device, or do you sit in front of a big display? How big is it? How many K does it have?
Oh, that was a few years ago. That was 5 years ago. So I had the Transvideo Rainbow HD, or 7-inch, because I never, having a 17-inch monitor for me, I thought it took you too far away from the set. I want to be able to have the monitor, look over the monitor, be close to the action, and then estimate the distance, especially if I can get on the side. Don't ever underestimate if being perpendicular to the action, because you can see the small moments. Like even if you're using a monitor and you see normally your operator, before he moves, you see this. That means I'm going to push in, and you can see all these little body cues of movement before it happens. So you start looking for that. And if you're stuck in a monitor, you're never going to see all those little cues.
And so how many Ks do you need to have on your display if there's HD or 4K coming out? Do you need the same resolution?
No, not necessarily. Having 1080 is fine for that. And the nice thing you do, because all these new transmitters and stuff are going to come out with a 4K, well, you can actually zoom in your 1080 display into the 4K by 4 times zoom in, because you don't need, even though how grand a wide lens is, I don't really need to see that for my job. So I could zoom in to just the eyeballs, because I just want to keep eyeballs in focus is the main part, keeping you hired.
So what do you do if you notice you were not spot on?
Well, if you're not spot on, you have to tell me, because especially, everyone's going to know now, because there's more monitors around than there ever were before. But before, if you had the bad feeling like shooting on film, I get a lot of film jobs now because people don't know how to shoot film anymore. And if it's not right, you have to say so, because they're going to find out eventually. And it costs a lot more money to come back and reshoot something than to stop and redo it again. And it sucks if you blow it, and it does happen. I've had tricky shots that, the deck is stacked against you, and you're right in a meal penalty. They want to break for lunch, get everyone off the clock, and you say, hey, I need another one.
Okay, so your crew, do you have a crew? Do you have a member of the crew? The second AC, is it your guy, or how's that organized?
Yeah, so you start to develop a shorthand with people. So I have a couple seconds that I use depending on who's available. And, I always want to have a strong second because my job is to take care of the gear and build relationships, not only with the producers, the actors, the DP, like everyone has the job. So those are the relationships, those are the people I take care of. And the second, he takes care, or she takes care of the gear and making sure that they build a strong base and of where all the accessories are, right? For example, if you have an AKS bag, everything needs to be in the same spot every time because you don't want to build something that's sloppy and then you're constantly looking for something. It's like, I need this, boom, it's always in the left-hand pocket, and you just want to keep everything there so it becomes muscle memory. Because muscle memory is going to be the key to making you fast. And so I have, the second normally I bring along with me, and then the B camera normally switches because the B operator or the DP wants to have something. So that's always kind of a shuffling of cards, but I try to bring my person, and luckily my Steadicam operator, who's the A Steadicam, he's been pretty good to me for the last couple of years, and we've done 6 projects together, and he fights for me, and then I bring on my people as well.
So are you also responsible for the proper exposure?
Well, used to be a lot more serious, but that's what Arthur does now, the DIT. But back on film, I would set the stop, and then I would have to, like on a film camera, I know this is probably antiquated and no one really cares, but if you look at it sideways, you have to check to make sure that the aperture is right, the shutter is right, and it's like a pre-roll. I always think of it like a plane cockpit, because you have to check to make sure focus, aperture, shutter, and then the time left on the roll. So fast is a good acronym that they used to use that. So every time you roll, because you forget. It's like, well, if someone bumped a stop and then there's 2 stops below, and that's really bad. You find that in dailies. Luckily, in digital now we have the DIT, and we have another wonderful person to add to the crew, and that would be Arthur in this situation, and they monitor the exposure. So it's one less thing for me to deal with, and I could focus on focus.
It's probably a good situation, even when the sensor's getting larger, the focal length's longer. Everybody wants to shoot with a 1.8 or something.
Yeah, I think that's overrated.
Kind of stressful thing anyhow. So what comes to my mind when I saw, for example, after the wedding on Monday, so I think he did not expose everything with wide open. Mm-hmm. So he stopped down there, here and there. And what I noticed is that faces were completely sharp most of the time, which I like. Only in extreme situations, to my taste, you would only go on the eyes or something. But so is that something you discussed together? So depth of field, how much he actually wants, he or she wants to have as a director of photography, and you recommend things? Or?
Well, each DP is different. Some are more open for collaboration and about focus. And I've read books on optical physics and how eyes work and perception and a bunch of nerdy shit that you don't really need to worry about getting too deep into it. But I have the information there if we need it. But normally the DP sets a stop, and right. Sometimes most of the time you agree with it. Sometimes you don't necessarily agree with it. But then there's a lot of times that there's something that you didn't understand for in the broader context, because focus is not above story. And if sometimes a challenge in shot, it's like you want to have one eye in focus, or you want the eyelashes in focus, because that's how ridiculous it's getting now. But maybe it's good for the story. If the guy is a junkie and he's, he's out of it, then maybe playing with focus, that adds to the story.
Okay.
But don't use wide open as a crutch, because you don't know how to light.